Does corruption really exist in our law enforcement system here in the United States? Well, today we have a story from Central Florida where one undercover law enforcement officer decided to take it upon himself to challenge the system. This is the story of an undercover law enforcement officer who had been with a Central Florida Police Department for several years prior to going undercover. For the purposes of this story, we will call this undercover law enforcement officer Lex. Lex joined the department several years prior, working with many law enforcement officers and realizing what law enforcement was really like. Lex, one day, applied to become an undercover law enforcement officer and was ultimately selected. He went through hours and hours of training becoming an undercover law enforcement officer. But as we all know, all the training in the world cannot stop someone's personal greed in their position. While Lex had been working undercover for quite some time, Lex was afforded the opportunity to use undercover funds for the purchase of drugs and other illicit services. Lex knew the policies and procedures when using these funds and how it always had to be witnessed by another law enforcement officer or as part of a larger operation in which he would be able to use the funds to acquire an illicit substance. But Lex had other intentions in mind. Lex was known for partying while off duty and consuming extreme amount of alcohol in order to impress not only his friends, but also females as well. One day, after work, Lex took it upon himself to go to a local bar and order several drinks of alcohol while sitting at the bar alone. Lex ultimately did not use his personal money to purchase the alcohol, but he instead used the government's undercover funds to purchase the alcohol at the bar. This was actually found out by another law enforcement officer who went to the bar and helped him pay the bill. When this incident was discovered, Lex was immediately placed into an internal affairs investigation. Ultimately, the investigation was done by another law enforcement officer who was, at no fault, Lex's good friend. The investigation immediately found that Lex had used undercover funds to purchase alcohol for his own consumption while not working. As you and I know, this would be considered fraud or theft from you, the taxpayer, as well as the government. However, even though this theft had occurred, Lex was ultimately allowed to maintain his job and remain in an undercover unit with the same law enforcement agency. Lex had become friends with several of the leaders of the department, and this incident clearly demonstrated that yes, government corruption still does exist. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video so that you can see our upcoming commentary on what Lex does throughout his career. Were Lex's actions handled properly? Should Lex have been terminated or even more charged with theft like every other United States citizen would? Do you have a story similar to this? If so, please share your story at bad-bosses.com and you will air on an upcoming episode of Bad Bosses. Thank you, and don't forget to comment below on how you would have handled this situation or what you would have liked to have seen different.